By the time this episode goes live, it will probably have been a month since the 11th Circuit's ruling regarding the Fearless Fund. As a Black woman and as an entrepreneur, I was dispirited and disgusted about it then, and I am still feeling the same. Hello, 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 and welcome to More Than Money, a podcast where we have nuanced conversations about money, business, and life, where we take the time to explore the human side of money because success with money is never just about the numbers. I'm your host, Jacquette Timmons, and I am really, really glad that you are here with me today. And so, whether this is your very first episode or one of many, welcome and welcome back. Now, before we get into today's episode, I've got some news for you. And it's regarding another way of working with me. If you want help with your pricing and you don't want to wait until the next time I offer the pricing masterclass live, well, then guess what? I have created a new version, an asynchronous version, which means that if you prefer and you want help, with your pricing, but you prefer doing that on a schedule that works best for you, this is something that you might be interested in learning more about. So send me a DM on Instagram, and then I will get you all of the details and we can take the next steps after that. But in the meantime, let's get into today's show. In November of 2023, I had the awesome opportunity and privilege to speak at the Black Women in Asset Management Conference. And as I said in episode 195, soon after, it was an incredibly meaningful experience. And it was so for many, many reasons. One of which was simply bearing witness to how far we have come. And here's some of what I said in that episode. So, kind of quote unquote myself, which is weird, but here we go. When I started my career at Bankers Trust, now Deutsche Bank, in 1986, or when I started my own business in 1995, you might, with an emphasis on might, have had a large conference room full of Black women who worked in the industry. Never could have imagined a full-blown conference with multiple hundreds in the room representing the myriad disciplines of the industry, those being investment management, private equity, wealth management, legal, venture capital, impact investing, pension funds, end quote. My point being this, between the main stage and the breakout room discussions, the conference was certainly a reflection of the progress made in the industry in terms of representation. So, yay, wonderful news. But several panels didn't shy away from addressing a backlash that was afoot to that progress, most notably in the form of the lawsuit that was brought in August of 2023, so just a few months before this conference. And it was brought against the Fearless Fund, a Black-owned venture capital firm. And in case you don't know, the Fearless Fund was established in 2019 to, as they say on their website, invest in women of color-led businesses seeking pre-seed, seed, and Series A financing. And there's a very strong likelihood that you use or have used a product or service created by one of the founders that they've financed. So if you're curious, just go and check out their website, fearless.fund/portfolio, and you will just see all of the businesses that they have invested in since launching in 2019. But back to this suit. It was brought by the same conservative activist attorney who claimed considering race in college admissions was unconstitutional. And this same claim was being made regarding the foundation arm of the Fearless Fund and its Fearless Strivers Grant Contest. And this was a grant program which offered $20,000 and was only open to Black females. Now, given the US Supreme Court's June 2023 ruling that ended the ability of colleges and universities to consider race in college admissions, the court's pending ruling on this lawsuit was fresh on the minds of many people at the conference. Well, we got an answer. The uncertainty and the concern that was hovering in that room or in those rooms were actually validated. And they were validated when the 11th Circuit temporarily blocked the Fearless Fund's ability to continue with that particular program. This ruling is yet another example of how things that were intended to benefit Black people in general and Black women in particular are now thought to be exclusionary and discriminatory toward others. And I gotta tell you, as a Black woman and as an entrepreneur, I am appalled by this ruling. It then left me feeling dispirited and disgusted, and I still feel those feelings now as I'm recording this episode. And if you saw a video that I recorded the day after the ruling that I posted on social media, my frustration was clearly evident. And in part because I've just grown oh so weary of hearing, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, particularly when this ruling is an example of taking away the boot and the darn straps at that. Like the unmitigated gall of the attorney who brought the suit to say, and I'm quoting this attorney, programs that exclude certain individuals because of their race, such as the ones the Fearless Fund has designed and implemented, are unjust and polarizing, end quote. How can you make such an assertion given the hundreds of years of discrimination and disenfranchisement Black people and Black women have suffered? As you can tell, I am still a little peeved about this. And yes, I am being a little indignant when I ask. I know it could be into the void, but when I ask, are you kidding me? But actually, the stats rightfully beg that we all ask this question. Let me share some stats with you. According to the Brookings Institution, between 2017 and 2020, the number of Black women-owned businesses increased by nearly 20%, far exceeding the growth of women-owned businesses and Black-owned businesses overall. Here's something else to reinforce that. It's from GoDaddy's research. They conclude that while Black women make up less than 10% of the US population, they've emerged as the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs. Wells Fargo, they released what they describe as a backgrounder. And this found that Black/African American women's small businesses grew to 2.1 million between 2019 and 2023, generating 98.3 billion, yes, with a B, in revenue for the US economy. Now, as an aggregate, 98.3 billion is quite an impressive number. But the average revenues for these businesses is really quite sobering. They increased 32.7% to 47,300 between 2019 and 2023. Nowhere in the ballpark when compared to businesses founded by Latinx or white women or Black or white men. And according to Business Insider, before 2021, only 93 Black female founders had raised $1 million or more in venture capital. And prior to 2018, just 34 had done so. These facts come from the most recent findings by Project Diane. And this is a biennial report on the state of Black and Latin women founders, I should say, by the organization Digital Undivided. And according to the Fearless Fund itself, women of color let me rephrase that. According to the Fearless Fund itself, women of color business founders in 2022 received only 0.39% of the 288 billion that venture capital firms deployed. That's a disproportionately small share of venture capital investments, wouldn't you say? So, as the stats confirm, in my opinion anyway, this lawsuit and this ruling aren't about the unintended consequences from legislation that was put in place to protect Blacks, or the initiatives like the Strivers Grant Fund to support Black women in business. The intent of the Fearless Fund was to help level the playing field, not to create additional unfair advantages. And yes, they can continue raising pre-seed, seed, and Series A funding, Series A capital, but for the time being, they cannot offer grants that would offer smaller startups a head start or a step up. So here's the unfortunate and perhaps inconvenient truth, and that is that this lawsuit and this ruling is simply a direct backlash against diversity and affirmative action initiatives. And if the current ruling stays, the implications are far reaching. They're far reaching in the form of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, the innovation and economic growth. All of that is at risk, creating the possibility for a really less dynamic economy. Systemic inequalities against marginalized people will just continue to get reinforced. And the Black wealth gap only grows even wider than it already is. Here are some more like stark numbers to leave you with. According to the survey for consumer finances, median Black wealth increased 27,970 to 44,890, but continued to lag other racial groups. In 2022, median wealth was approximately 62,000 for non-white Latino and Hispanic households. It was 285,000 for white households and 536,000 for Asian American households. So in my view, the stats tell a completely different story. And it can be disheartening and it can be dispiriting. And for some like me, also leave us feeling really, really disgusted. But you know what I lean on? And it is this. As history has demonstrated, we have weathered much greater obstacles to our individual and our collective growth. So while this is indeed a setback and it is indeed a bit demotivating right now, I also believe that it will ultimately serve as motivating and mobilizing fuel for a wide range of stakeholders, particularly if we keep in mind that in reality, this ruling doesn't just affect Black women, it affects all of us. Well, that is it for today, folks. Thank you so much, as always, for listening and maybe even watching if you are joining us on YouTube. I thank you for that. If you'd like to show appreciation for this podcast or perhaps this particular episode, please do me a favor and share it with the people in your circle. It will help us to reach more people than we ever could on our own. And if you happen to be listening on Apple Podcasts, please take a moment to leave a rating and a review. One, we do read them, but two, let's face it, it does help us with the algorithm. So thank you for doing that as well. And if you are watching on YouTube, please take a moment and comment below. As always, if you'd like to buy me a coffee, you can do that by going to buymeacoffee.com/Jaquette. Again, buymeacoffee.com/Jaquette. I'll be back with another episode, and I hope you will too. Until then, remember, it's about more than money.